Welcome to Engineering Scale Models Presents Tabletop Strategies, Tips, and Tricks. I'm Jason, your host, and today we're looking at a solo play of Dungeon Saga. So let's get to the overhead, and I have a little different setup with this corner camera that is hopefully going to let us see some things that the overhead camera cannot pick up. So we're just going to try it for this video and see how that works. Let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Now, we are using the solo variant rules available from the Adventure Companion. And if you watched my unboxings or any of the unboxings, I talked about how I'm playing this solo and how some of the rules are lacking, and I want to hash that out and make that a little bit more engaging for the player. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to play through the first two adventures in the quest book here, the Dwarf King's Quest. I'm going to play through the first two quests, setting them up, playing through them solo with the Invisible Overlord. I am going to be using the Invisible Overlord cards here, and I want to go over in detail how they work. And for these first two adventures, learning how the heroes work, I am going to go into elaborate detail on how I will be playing the solo mechanics of this game. And then after that, I will move on to the main quest that use the 4 heroes, and I will continue to play them. And then I will, in the meantime, while I'm playing them, I will be working on building a custom campaign. I was going to use custom heroes that I designed myself, but I think I can just use heroes from all the boxes and come up with a group of adventurers that is unique, and I can come up with a backstory and all that good stuff. Maybe give everybody a nickname and use that. But let's talk about the solo rules here. For the solo game, you're going to be using something called the Invisible Overlord. And the Invisible Overlord works is you have your 4 heroes on, or your 2 heroes in this case, on the board. And we'll say that Orloff moves 1, 2, 3, boom, and he attacks somebody. And when his turn's done, I'm going to draw an Invisible Overlord card. Just like that. And I'm going to get glare on it because I thought I had it in the right spot. Okay, so, and you can see here, if you look at the bottom, it says interrupt. And it says yes. So, if we put a couple skeleton warriors here, it says the interrupt's yes, so the number of the interrupt is 1. That's a little hard to see at the top. Is a 1, so 1 model from the Overlord's team is going to be able to activate. Now you're wondering what model activates, right? Well, it tells us what model activates. If you flip to the next page here, it says which models activate. And first in that order, following the steps, it says models that can do the order without moving. So we look here, and we need to look at the threat. And the threat for the spellcaster for this order is spellcaster and the weakest. Well, first of all, there's no spellcasters in our group. So how do we calculate who is the weakest? Well, it helps us calculate that also in here. So when you establish the threat risk of all of your units, whatever their level is their base threat. So currently they're level 0 characters. So they each have 0 threat. If there was a spellcaster, he would gain +3. And then everyone who is weakest gains +3. If they have 2 wounds, and weakest is if you have wounds on your on your character sheet here, for every wound you get, you're going to get +3, and then it turns out whoever has the highest number at the end of adding all the +3 modifiers is the one you're going to attack. Now, my thing with that is the Skeleton Warriors have a move of 4. You can see that right here. They have a move of 4. And if my spellcaster is him, for example, he is not going to be able to get to him, and definitely not be able to gang up on him, which is move so that many models as possible can fight the same hero, because I'm only activating one model. So I'm going to say the first threat thing in front of every card is going to be the closest. So the closest model to the model I plan to activate is going to have +3 to his threat. So in this case, there's no spellcaster, there's no weakness, but there is someone closest, and this is Orloff here, and he has +3 threat. So he is the target of these models that are here, whatever one I decide to do. So if we go back, so they have a movement of 4, and it says move a model that can perform the attack, and we know the attack is move as many models in that can attack. So this guy can go 1, 2, 3, and he can attack, or this guy can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and he can attack this way. That also blocks the path going up, and then if I get another turn, this guy could come in and we could really bog him down. Like I said, I have those two options available to me. What I feel is the best option is to do what's worst for the heroes. So my best option is not to go here. The best option for the Overlord is to go here, because the front arc is still where the skeleton is. Nobody can get behind the skeleton, nobody can get past the skeleton. Skeleton has to fight, and the skeleton can still fight. So at this point, this order, this interrupt, the skeleton would fight Orloff, and we'll just say, for an example, he gave Orloff a wound. We'll just say, for example. So now, that's the first Invisible Overlord card there is done. So now, Warden's going to go, he's going to move up, blah, 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 and he's going to attack this skeleton, and he misses, and the skeleton's still alive. We'll get into attacking and all that. We're just talking about the solo Invisible Overlord right now. Now, it is the end of the hero phase. There's no more heroes left, so I'm not going to pull a card to check for interrupts anymore. If there was 4 heroes, after the first one, I would draw 1. After the second one, I would draw 1. After the third one, I would draw 1. And then at the end of the turn, I will do this. I will draw 2 cards. The first one doesn't matter if it says interrupt, because that doesn't matter. For the first card I do, I am going to use the number of activations that are in the quest book for this adventure. And this adventure happens to have 2 activations, 2 commands per turn. So I would use 2 commands, and then I would calculate my threat appropriately. So they are both the closest to my models, so they both get +3. But the next line of threat is armored, and if we look at armored, it is hero with 4 or 5 armor. But I only have one hero, Warden, with 4 or 5 armor, and his attack, if I move this guy, he will attack Warden. If I move this guy in, he will attack Warden. So I have 2 activations. And the order is to support, which means I could raise skeletons, or I could bring as many models in to support another model, but it doesn't say attack them. it says move models that are more than a single move from any heroes towards the action. For magic users, this includes casting spells that are not attacks. For the undead, this includes casting raise dead on piles of bones that are not adjacent to heroes. I think that order in a situation like this is not good. So I will use my best judgment and I will change that support to an attack. So I could have 2 models attack. This guy could attack right now, but that's not best for the Overlord. The best for the Overlord is to move this guy in 1, 2, 3, and we're still going to attack Rorden because he's the unarmored and he doesn't have any quest items. But if you keep adding the +3, he has a +6, and Orloff only has a +3. So now this guy will attack Rorden, and then this guy will attack Rorden. And by moving this one in first, he is outnumbered because he has 2 models in his front arc and he is only 1 model. So by doing that, I have made it more difficult for the heroes, and I made the game more difficult and more streamlining as it would be if a real Overlord was playing the game. So I will always play if all enemies can make an attack. I will do those attacks. If I can overpower a model, I will overpower a model and make those attacks. I will still calculate the threat. I will add at the top of everything, closest adds +3. So, and then we will decide who they go after for that. There may be times when going after a spellcaster is more appropriate if they are farther away, if they can perform that order. If they can't perform that order, they're going to go to the closest. They're going to go to the highest threat that they can get to, because that's how an Overlord would play. I mean, sometimes Overlords are sneaky and devious, but in this case, I'm going to do what's worst for the heroes and best for the Overlord. So now that I've done my 2 commands in the Overlord turn, I've finished that card. I will draw 1 more because it's the Overlord's turn, and then I will activate 2 models. I will activate 2 models because I use the number on the card now, which is 2. And then I would go after the marksman or unarmored, and I would go to pin them. And that is put as many models in front of the heroes as possible. So I already have that done. That's already done. So in this case, my only option would be to raise some skeletons. So let's say there's a bone pile here, a bone pile here, and a bone pile here. Now I have 2 commands on here, and I can raise 2 skeletons here. Now how would the threat help me raise the skeletons? I don't have any marksmen, but I would go by what bone pile is the closest. So this bone pile would be a move away from the heroes. Would be a move away from the heroes. So I would raise this one. We'll put this warrior here. And that is, and then now this warrior could get into this rear arc of the hero and potentially do more damage. Now I have a choice here. I could do this one, and then he could come in here and repin them, or I could do this one back here for another option to attack the rear arc. Now you're probably thinking, bring another one in from behind and do that, but if these 2 skeletons are killed, they have a free access to the door, and if they start moving before my models get an activation or move in, or I don't get interrupts for the Overlord and things like that, this is going to be all clear up here. So I would choose to raise this one here and face him this way. And then maybe possibly next turn during an interrupt, I'll raise this one so they can activate on a turn. So that would conclude the Overlord's turn. We would go to the end phase, and everybody would end a round, everybody would flip their tokens, roll any things that happen to end a round and things like that. Then it would move back to the hero's turn, and the heroes would move, attack, and all that order. And then after the first one goes, I would draw an invisible Overlord card. And we would continue to the game to one of the quest objectives are met. Either they run out of time, one of the heroes is crippled, or the heroes make it to the objective, which is in this case opening this door. So let's talk about how we keep track of running out of time. So the best way, and this is on the FAQ on Mantic's website, the Overlord would get 12 cards in this case for his Overlord hand if we were playing with a real Overlord. So what I have here is I have 12 Overlord cards. And how a real Overlord works is at the beginning of the game they would draw 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. They would draw 3 cards, and this would be their hand. And then at the end of every round, the Overlord would draw a card. So that's your timer. So at the end of every round, the Overlord draws a card, and that's how you keep track of time. When the Overlord draws his last card, you know, all these have been drawn, draws his last card, the heroes are out of time, and the game is over. So now there is, it says draws his last card, and there is can't draw a card. So I am going to play it, since I'm changing up how the Invisible Overlord, if the Overlord goes to draw a card and a card is not available to draw, the game is over. Because drawing the last card really eliminate, I mean, the Overlord would never have a chance to play that card. What if that card was a game-winning card for the Overlord and he can't play it, like a delay card or a card that could, I think one more round should be allowing him to play that card. There's no, I couldn't find anything in the rules that specifically says why that is, that if he draws the last card, he would never be able to play that card. So it would be like the bottom card of the deck is worthless to you. So I think when he goes to draw a card and there is no card there to draw, the game is over. Like a lot of deck builders are that way. If you go to draw a card, there's no card there, then you lose the game. So I believe that's how my timer is going to work. So in cases of this, you would get 9 turns. So on the 10th turn, when he went to draw that 10th card, the game would be over, instead of 8 turns, where he draws the last card in the 8th round. So that's how that I planned to work that out. So what I'm going to do is I am going to set up this Journey from the West, and I am going to go through this playthrough of this Journey from the West. It's with Orloff and Rorden, and it's basically getting familiar with melee combat and how that works. I'm not following the quick start guide because I am playing with the Invisible Overlord with a few slight changes that I'll go over through the gameplay. But other than that, I'm going to follow the book to what it says. I'm going to set it all up the same way, and then I'm going to play it as the heroes would play, and also as the Overlord as an Overlord would play. I was an Overlord for Descent and Star Wars Imperial Assault, so I know how an Overlord would work, and I'm going to play it in the way that I believe an Overlord would play the game. So that's going to do it for this, guys. I hope this was a good sense of how I will do the solo aspect of Dungeon Saga to play through the missions that are in the book. This is solo for the missions that are in the book only. when I do solo of creating my own dungeons, creating my own people, there might be some variations that are added to it with items and levels and things like that. I'm not going to worry about anything like that. This is mainly solo. I might tie it all into a campaign. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to do some more reading on a campaign and how that works. And I hope you guys like the new mobile camera. I'm going to see how that works out for you guys. You know, with this option, I can bring the camera in like this, and you can see a better view of the board and the action that's going on. And I hope that works out and you guys like that. If you don't, you know, let me know. So that's going to do it for this video. You can visit me at these social media links. Links are in the description below. You can also visit my Patreon page, where I'll have a description of all my custom rules and all that good stuff for a variety of games. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.